Hey Changemaker! Welcome to Learning for Good, the only podcast that teaches nonprofit leaders how to leverage training to drive performance, improve capacity, and fuel their mission impact. Do you ever feel like your nonprofit is growing, but your people just aren't keeping up? Or like you're fixing the same problems over and over? Do you wonder how to build confident, capable staff who know how to lead, not just execute? If we haven't met yet, I'm Heather, and I know how hard it can feel to get people to do what's expected of them. Trust me, I have 3 kids. I've tried telling people what to do and how. I've tried the traditional training approaches, and I realized that just doesn't work. And that's when I started researching what does work. Now, I help mission-driven leaders use learning to drive performance, build capacity, and make change that lasts. And I'm sharing it all on this podcast. So block your calendar, turn off your Teams or Slack chat, and let's dive in. It's Learning for Good.
One of the movements that we do a lot in CrossFit is called a box jump. And it's where you jump from the ground and land on generally a 16-inch or a 20-inch or higher box. And when I was pregnant with my third several years ago, I was doing CrossFit, and the box jump is one of the things that I quit doing. I scaled it back to box step-ups, where instead of jumping onto the box, you simply step up onto the box. And it's a legitimate scaling option for box jumps. And I just felt like I was probably too clumsy to jump onto a box while pregnant. So that's what I did. I did the step ups. So fast forward to after I had my daughter and I returned to the gym, and I was excited to do a lot of things that I hadn't done in a while, but I really wasn't motivated to add box jumps back into my workouts. I was comfortable with step ups, right? That's what I had gotten used to, and that's what felt good and felt comfortable for me. And in my head, I was kind of thinking, well, like, when would I actually ever do a box jump in real life, right? Like functional fitness, how is this actually going to help me? And I couldn't see it. I didn't have the vision for it. And so I just didn't do it. I continued doing step ups. Now, eventually, I did talk myself into returning to box jumps, might as well, I confess. So I did return to box jumps, but it wasn't until a couple of years later when we were doing box jumps that I heard a coach explain why we do them in CrossFit. And she explained that the movement itself, jumping from the floor, right, was a power movement. It trained power. And that power translated into other lifts that we do. A little bit more technical. We don't need to go into that because you're probably not here for CrossFit stories. But it was the power, right, that we were training. And that got my brain turning big time, because I've been doing CrossFit for probably at least 4 years at this point, and I had never heard that. I didn't realize how the power was translating into other areas like my lifting. So all of a sudden, I'm looking at box jumps differently. I wasn't just looking at it as a box jump. I'm looking at it as a training mechanism for other things. Now, what changed? What did this coach do? That's what I want to talk about today. What she did and how we can apply it to learning. Let's dive in. It's Learning for Good. So what did my CrossFit coach do that changed everything for me? She explained why. And that's really what I want us to talk about today. How often do we create training or roll out an initiative and we don't explain the why? My guess is we do it a lot. And it's funny because one of the first things I learned when I began to study adult learning 20 years ago is that adults want to know why they are being asked to do something. It's one of the first things I learned. And yet it's so easily overlooked. But here's my questions. I started thinking about this and thinking about the box jump. Does it really make a difference? Does telling someone why really make a difference? And this is where it gets interesting. So in 1978, Ellen Langer at Harvard did a study on the word because. Could telling people why impact behavior? So Langer was ready to test this idea, and she chose her quote unquote lab, right, as a busy copy machine on a college campus. Now, remember, this is the 70s. Everyone had to make copies if you wanted to bring information home with you. So there were often lines of people at the copy machines. Langer had people approach the copy machine and ask to cut to the front of the line. Now, I don't know how long it's been since you have stood in a line, but people generally don't want you to cut, right? I was just in line to enter Wrigley Field for a concert recently. We all had tickets. We all had seats. And yet, right, in line, there were lots of small little pushes and side eyes and comments as people tried to inch their way in. So I can't imagine people welcomed the idea of cutting in line at a copy machine. The Langer in this study had people use 3 different requests to break in line. The first request, excuse me, I have 5 pages. May I use the Xerox machine? There was no because, there was no reason why. Just, may I use the Xerox machine? The second, excuse me, I have 5 pages. May I use the Xerox machine because I need to make copies? Which, keep in mind, everyone in line needs to make copies. The third, excuse me, I have 5 pages. May I use the Xerox machine because I'm in a rush? Now, what happened? In the first instance, excuse me, I have 5 pages. May I use the Xerox machine? Again, no because, no excuse, no reason why. 60% of people allow that person to cut in line, which is higher than I would actually anticipate. 60% of people allow the person to cut in line without a reason. But what happens when the person asking to cut in line explains why? So in the second instance, again, this was, excuse me, I have 5 pages. May I use the Xerox machine because I need to make copies? The reason doesn't even make sense. Because I need to make copies. Everyone needed to make copies. But it worked. 93% of people allow the person to cut in line. Now, in the third instance, this reason why is a little more practical. In the third instance, excuse me, I have 5 pages. May I use the Xerox machine because I'm in a rush? 94% of people allow the person to cut in line. So the word because resulted in a dramatic increase in compliance and allowing this person to do this thing. But again, I want us to go back to our role in L&D and changing behavior. How often do we forget to explain why we are asking people to learn something new or do something different? By simply cutting in line and giving a reason why, we went from 60% to 93% and 94%. Imagine what that could do for our workplace. Why should that manager coach instead of give direction? Why should that fundraiser input the donor data this way instead of that way? Why should the comms specialist use generative AI when their entire career has been built on their own writing skills? Why should the executive team engage in a strategic planning process? Why should your volunteers use trauma-informed practices? What's the reason? Now, I want you to think about it like this. So your staff or your volunteer, your audience, they are here. They know what to do and they know how to do it, right? You've taught them that. You've told them what to do. You've helped them develop the skills. They're here. They know what to do and how to do it. But you want them over here because this is where they're actually using the new skills and behavior. Imagine it like two cliffs. On one side, we have what to do and how to do it. And on the other side, you have them actually implementing those new skills and behavior. But how do they get from one cliff to the other? They can't get from one side to the other without help. They need a bridge. And that bridge is the why. If you don't offer them the why, they may be confused. Why is this change happening? They may feel resistant. Why should I do that? What good is it to me, right? That's kind of how I felt with the box jumps. What good is it to do them? They may not feel urgency. Why now? They may not feel motivated. But with the why, when we explain the why, we're building that bridge and they're more likely to feel buy-in. They're more likely to be motivated. They're more likely to persist when it gets hard because change is hard. It's uncomfortable. And so we need that persistence. Very unlikely that someone will persist when it's hard if they don't know why they should do it. So all of that leads to action, that buy-in, that motivation, that persistence. It leads to action. It leads to skills and behaviors being implemented. It leads to the change that you want to see in your organization. So if your staff are on the cliff where they know what to do and they know how to do it, but they still aren't doing it, and you want them on the other side where they're actually implementing the behavior, we have to build the bridge. And that is built through the why. That's it for today. I'll see you next time on Learning for Good. Hey friend, I want to break in here before we close out this episode. I want to personally invite you to our upcoming Learning for Good Summit. If you like the podcast, you will love the summit. It's a chance to get in the room with other nonprofit learning and development professionals and hear how they are approaching their role, what's working and what isn't. And the July summit is focused on becoming more strategic no matter your title. So grab the link in the show notes and I'll see you there.
Hey friend, was this episode helpful for you? Did you like what you heard? Do you want more content like this? Here are 3 things you can do. Hit subscribe. Leave a review on Apple Podcasts or your podcast app of choice. Share this episode with a colleague. This means so much to me personally. I read every review, but it also helps me learn what content you like most so I can create more of what you want. All right, turn that Teams or Slack chat back on when you're ready, and I'll see you next time on Learning for Good.